Hey, what's up, guys? This is Isan, and today we're talking about the NBA, specifically the Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, there's been two huge trades for the Thunder where they turned four role players into two All Stars. So the trades, I believe they were Victor Oladipo, Demontis Sabonis, Doug McDermott, and some other dude. Oh, Ennis Cantor. How did I forget about him? For Carmelo Anthony and Paul George. So now that we've gotten the trades out of the way, let's talk about how they can mesh. I want most of the time when they're all three on the court, I want Westbrook taking up the ball. From there, you can either go pick and roll with Melo or have Paul George run off ball plays with Melo, which can work very well. That is more of a system, which is what Westbrook is not really used to playing in a while now, considering Billy Donovan hasn't really run much of a system. He ran a little system with Westbrook and KD, but it didn't work out too well, which is why KD ended up leaving. And also because he's a snake, and snakes do the leaving of their teams. But enough on KD. What they need to do to mesh, aside from obviously off ball and pick and rolls, like I mentioned, they need to stagger minutes, which is something they weren't really willing to do when KD was on the Thunder. They played them both at the same time, and it for a good reason. They didn't have three All Stars; they had two. They needed both those players to be on the court at the same times and try to dominate in that time. And then when they go to the bench, they try to stagger. They try to keep them both on the court. Is what I'm trying to say. At what you can do now is you can have two of them at the court, or you could have Westbrook alone for some time, have Carmelo and Paul George rest up, put in Paul George only, then put in Melo, then take out Paul George, put in Westbrook a little bit later. So it's easy to do the staggering of minutes. Then you look at the Warriors and the Cavs when they're playing those two teams, which I'm going to assume they're going to play. Um, that is going to be a very difficult game, obviously, for both teams, I'm sure. But I see the Warriors having a matchup problem, which brings me into the best case scenario. Best case scenario is the Thunder make it back to the finals and they have a good series with the Cavs. I'm not gonna say who wins because it's really hard for me to compare West and East teams, especially when they've played so little. I mean, Carmelo, I forgot to mention this. He's gonna have no problem passing the ball. He's a great team passer. He's an underrated passer, especially. I mean, I can almost see him. You can already see him playing in the preseason. He's not trying, obviously, but they're trying to get the chemistry together. Melo is passing nice, but the best case scenario is they go back to the finals for the first time um since 2012. Almost I almost forgot. 2012, and this time they don't choke 3-1 against the Warriors because we don't have KD to choke it. This time we have Westbrook, Paul George, and Melo. You have Westbrook on Curry. That's already a good matchup in favor for the Thunder. Shooting guard, we have Andre Roberson, which, I mean, defensively, he's a great player. He can easily defend Klay Thompson, I would say. I mean, Andre Roberson is maybe even underrated for his defense. I mean, it's the only good thing about him because he's an offensive potato. He can definitely get it done on the defensive end, though. Then we go over to Paul George, obviously one of the few players on this planet that can defend Kevin Durant. That's going to be a very interesting matchup to watch. I mean, Kevin Durant, obviously, he's an offensive superstar. You can't deny that. One of the best offensive players to possibly ever live, even. But Paul George is also one of the best two-way players in the game today. Maybe right behind Kawhi and LeBron. I mean, it's an interesting matchup for sure. Then we go over to power forward position, and this is going to be another interesting matchup. We have Melo, who's one of the best one-on-one players in the league right now, and you have Draymond Green, who is known for his defensive prowess. But they're both small power forwards. I think that that's going to be more of a tough position to decide. We're going to have to watch to see how it works out in between them. Finally, we go over to center, Steven Adams, defensive center. I mean, the Warrior center has always been trash, and it'll never be good. At least, unless they somehow acquire DeMarcus Cousins or something, which isn't going to happen. That was just a joke. Um, on the defensive end, Thunder have more defensive players than the Warriors. The biggest problem will be the bench. The bench matchups are not looking good for the Thunder at all. But Westbrook and Carmelo and Paul George are all known for their high usage rates. I'm sure they can take very long periods of time. They can stay on the court for a long time, even in the playoffs with how intense that is. You saw in the playoffs last year, Westbrook lasted that long. You look at Paul George, and Carmelo hasn't been in the playoffs for a while, but I mean, even though Carmelo is creeping up on that age, when you have the other two superstars helping you, you shouldn't. You should be able to stay on the court longer. And so, assuming the starting lineup of the Thunder has a matchup. What's it called? What's the word? Matchup advantage against the Warriors. Then all they need to do is outscore the Warriors, and then the bench needs to do everything in its power to defend the Warriors, which is going to be difficult for sure. The bench of Thunder is still not very good. Other than that, though, I think the Thunder are probably closer to the best case scenario than they are to the worst case scenario, which is Carmelo, Paul George, and Westbrook cannot match up. They end up losing more games than they did last year, and they get knocked out of the first round again. I'd say that this is still possible. I don't see it happening. This is a slim chance of happening, mainly because I think Melo can become a team player as he has shown in the preseason and in All-Star games and in, well, not really All-Star games, but I meant and Olympic games. And Paul George can play off ball. I was really excited to hear that Paul George, of all people, are matching up with Westbrook, which I said, wow, that is the star to match up with Westbrook. I mean, he can play off ball, he can play one on one, he can take it up sometimes, give Westbrook a break from ball handling. I mean, it's really a perfect match. But it can also not work out considering they're all used to high usage times. Say Melo isn't willing to give the ball up. Say Paul George wants to bring the ball up more, and say Westbrook doesn't want to see his stats go down. I mean, they're all doing it for the money. To get the money, you need the stats, and then get the chip. You need to work together. So it's priorities right here. Um, I'd say that my final predictions. My final predictions are the Thunder will beat the Warriors and make it to the finals. I think the best case scenario is actually not only the best case scenario, but the most likely scenario, just because I think the Thunder in a 7-game series can outlast the Warriors because they're used to the high usage time, because they have because they're better with their matchups. I don't think that the Thunder are more talented than the Warriors, but I think their matchups are better. Now, how they do with the Cavs, I I think the Cavs are gonna win it all, to be honest, which hurts coming from a Thunder fan. But you know what? Westbrook is the most clutch player on this planet, in my opinion. So you never know when you have a clutch player. This is Izin signing out. See you later.